Wilma, are we ready to start?
Ready when you are.
Okay, we're back in session. I'm Janice Smith from the Karuta Project, and I'm pleased to introduce our first presentation for this slot. This presentation is about foundational infrastructure, support for foundational infrastructure, and we'll be talking about authentication, in specific the CAS project, and we have a video from that project.
Hello, and welcome to a quick presentation on the state of the Apereo CAS project in 2019. My name is Misagh Moayyed, and I am a CAS developer and a member of the CAS Project Management Committee. And in this quick presentation, I'd like to go over the status of the CAS project as far as activities, statistics, past releases, and those that are upcoming. And finally, introduce you to resources and avenues for support so that you can get more involved with the project and support its development effort and activity. For those who might be unfamiliar with the project, Apereo CAS, short for Central Authentication Service, is an open source Apache 2 licensed project hosted on GitHub at the link that is listed on this website. And it primarily features in the identity management, access management space, and acts as an identity provider, a single sign-on provider or manager. And as the name suggests, basically it attempts to centralize matters of authentication and user identity so that that sort of logic is not littered inside every individual application, and all of that is managed centrally and audited centrally. And individual applications can talk to this central authentication service using any standard authentication protocol that's available today, such as SAML2, OpenID Connect, CAS, etc., and exchange information with the identity provider and ask for user profile data and attributes and so on and so forth. As I mentioned, the project is open source. It's under the Apache 2 license. It's hosted up on GitHub, and I encourage you to check out that link and take a look at the project's README, especially to understand what the project is about in more details and find ways to get involved and give it a try as best as you can. So without further ado, as far as project activities concerned, specifically in 2019, as usual, we've had quite the busy year. We've had almost 30 software releases in 2019, 18 patches, a number of release candidates, a couple of security patches, in fact, and one feature release that usually is packed with improvements and enhancements that I will describe in future slides. Today, the project stands at about 400 some modules, add-ons, extensions, 220,000 lines of code, and as far as our test efforts are concerned, we stand at about 76% coverage. And hopefully our goal is to try to get that number as high as possible and get it closer to 85% so that we might have a little bit more confidence in the way that the software is designed and developed. Today, in total, we have almost 260 contributors from all walks of life on GitHub. And many of these contributors are first-time contributors to the project. They've had their first patch or contribution to the project accepted in 2019. And we'd like to see more of those folks get involved and get active and contribute to the project. And we'd like to make that avenue to contribution as easy and as pain-free as possible. And hopefully this number will continue to grow as we step into 2020 and beyond. And finally, there is a healthy amount of activity on CAS mailing lists, various chat rooms, platforms such as Stack Overflow, and these are generally very good resources and avenues for anybody who wants to get involved with the project, to discuss issues, share feedback, and in general ask for support and guidance from the larger CAS community. And so we hope to keep this sort of activity up in 2020 and even grow it to a larger degree by the end of the year, and have more good news as we make progress with development. As far as releases, as I mentioned, there were about 30 releases in 2019, small and large. The two imminent releases that are upcoming, one is a feature release in the CAS 6.2 release line. It's the first of its kind, first of its name. That's about to be out as of today in about 10 days. And then there is the patch release 6.17 that will be out in about 20 days. These releases are available and publicly advertised on GitHub at the link that is listed on this website. And the CAS project generally tends to stick with a fairly committed schedule as far as releases go. And there's usually about a patch release or a feature release every month or every 2 months. So please keep an eye out, and you can, in fact, watch for releases on the GitHub project and be notified as soon as a release is made available. And as always, if you'd like to learn more about the scope of individual releases and what they might contain and how long they might be maintained and things of that nature, there is always the maintenance policy as well as the release policy. These are documented and are publicly available on the website. And so if you're ever in doubt whether something will be patched or whether there will be an upcoming release in this particular CAS release line, all of these things can be sort of determined and figured out publicly, either on the release schedule or the maintenance policy and so on. So please do check them out, and make sure that you subscribe to the GitHub project if you'd like to learn more about release notifications. The upcoming CAS feature release, the most recent feature release, will be CAS 6.2. That again will be out in about 10 to 12 a week or two, let's say. And this is a release that's been in development for about 6 months. The development of this release started around early 2020. It's been through 5 release candidates, and these are candidates that are generally cut and released at the end of every month to invite and excite the community to get involved and give the candidate a try and figure out if it's stable enough, if it's solid enough. And so we've had 5 of those, and hopefully those would be enough to proceed with the general release. And I'm excited to say that during the course of this development for CAS 6.2, we've had 33 contributors, brand new contributors, old contributors from everywhere, submit patches and contributions and suggestions concretely on the GitHub project. And this generally has been consistent in comparison with previous releases. In terms of features, there is, given that this is a feature release, a minor release, there is a lot of goodies sort of packed into this release of the software. It's impractical to list all of them, but I've tried to list some that I thought might be more exciting and more interesting than others. I am personally a fan of the new material design UI, as well as trying to keep compatibility with the Java releases. At the moment, we stand compatible with JDK 14. And across the board, there have been a number of dependency or library upgrades to make sure CAS components can keep up with the software ecosystem as it regards OpenSAML, Hazelcast, Cassandra, MongoDB, etc. And so this is a feature release that really puts the word feature into a feature release, as it's usually the case with CAS feature releases. To learn more about what the release might contain, the release notes are usually published on the Apereo GitHub blog. And if you'd like to learn more about what the release might contain and what the breaking changes might be, and so on and so forth, the release notes are available on the blog, and these release notes are available as changes are made. So you don't really have to wait for something to be out to realize what it might contain. You can sort of watch them as they go by, because the release notes are usually updated as development makes progress. So in short, CAS 6.2 will be out in 10 days, and we invite you to give it a try. The upgrade should be fairly smooth if you're going from a 6.0 or a 6.1, and it should hopefully not be too painful to bump the versions and stay on a more supported, more recent version of the software. So in other 2019 news, the CAS project conducted a survey to ask for feedback from CAS adopters and the wider CAS community. The results of this survey are published on the Apereo GitHub blog that you can check out and get a lot more information, a lot more detail about the questions and the answers and the feedback and the action items that follow. In short, the larger majority of the participants in the survey were from the higher education sector, and the rest were sort of from a healthy distribution of various industry sectors like finance and travel and healthcare, etc. And in general, the larger majority were running either CAS 5 or CAS 6, which is fairly good news in terms of keeping up with recent project activity and releases. And a very, very large number of participants in the survey indicated that they were either using in-house resources or free community resources for support and troubleshooting and guidance. And amongst the participants of the survey, there was a healthy distribution of and a healthy variety of those who support others, those who simply use the software, and those who develop and submit patches and such. So we'd like to see that distribution be as even as possible and have each sort of category grow individually to balance out the others. And that was fairly good in terms of numbers and those roles that were advertised by the participants. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who took time to participate in the survey, take a look at the questions and answer concretely and precisely, and provided feedback. And rest assured, the project certainly does take that feedback into account. And as we step into 2020 and beyond, we'll certainly use those ideas to build some sort of a roadmap or plan in terms of future improvements and enhancements and other things that might be good for the larger community. So speaking of things to do, as we move forward, the next coming CAS release, yet another feature release, will be the 6.3 line that will be out hopefully by the end of this year, December 2020. And while the plan and the roadmap, quote unquote, is not official and finalized yet, some of the big things that we'd like to do, I've tried to list them here in summary. Certainly most important of which is to make sure that we remain compatible with the Java release cadence, and we remain compatible with the upcoming JDK 15 and JDK 16. Not that we would require folks to switch to these versions, but simply we want to make sure that if the time comes that we have to switch, there's not a whole lot of work to be done by that point, and we stand sort of ready and prepared to make that switch if and when necessary. And furthermore, one of the items that, among many others that was listed in the CAS survey was a request for supporting WebAuthn or FIDO2 for multi-factor authentication. And this is an item that some reasonable, measurable progress has been made on it so far. And hopefully in 6.3, we'll attempt to finalize and bring it to completion for the general release in December 2020. So stay tuned, watch the release notes, watch the blog, and stand ready to hear more good news on that front as far as MFA rounds is concerned. And another thing that we would continue to do, and perhaps even do it better than before, is to prepare and put together and publish blogs, tutorials, and guides so that matters of configuration and deployment and strategy and best practices and such, as they are collected from the wider community, are published in a way that is accessible and reusable and recyclable by those who are new to the project or those who wish to take advantage of a particular feature. And this is something that we expect everybody to contribute to. The blogs as well as the tutorials guides are all published on the Apereo GitHub blog. They're all hosted on GitHub. And anytime you see a need for a new blog post or you'd like to document your experience, or you found an inaccuracy in one and you wish to correct. All these blogs are written in Markdown. They're available on GitHub, and the project certainly accepts pull requests if you are in a writer's mood. And this is something we'd like to focus on more and more as we move forward in the year. So finally, a couple of resources that you may already be familiar. There is, of course, as I mentioned numerous times, there is the Apereo blog that contains a large number of CAS-related content, guidance, tutorials, walkthroughs, release notes, anything else that we might publish, security release, and details and patches and things of that nature. There is, of course, the CAS website that is the official documentation, is the reference documentation for everything that happens with the CAS project. And again, if none of those are good enough or sufficient, you can always take a look at support options that are available on the side, whether you are a fan of mailing lists or chat rooms or platforms like Stack Overflow and similar places. These options are documented and available that you can get involved, as well as commercial support if you really needed something that resembles a service level agreement or a contract or some sort of commitment at that level. Certainly all options are available at the link outlined here. And then last but not least, there is, of course, always the Apereo membership route for support. You probably already know that almost all development for the CAS project, and perhaps all other Apereo projects, is done on a voluntary basis. Anytime you see a schedule or a date somewhere on the website, there is the invisible clause that says if there is anybody available who has interest, who has time, who has the resources. And this generally tends not to be a problem, except when it comes to managing maintenance of a release and keeping it alive and attending to security patches if and when they come up. And at that point, running something of an enterprise nature, a software at that scale, based on efforts of volunteers, is probably not a sure route to go. So if you haven't already, I strongly recommend that you take advantage and take a look at the Apereo membership options and support the project at a rate that is most suitable and acceptable to you. And once you are a member, certainly there might be considerations for other things the project might be able to do, such as long-term releases, long-term support, and commitment to quick fixes when we have to deal with security issues and matters of that nature. And in general, your sponsorship and your membership helps to make sure the project runs on sustainable ground. That's it. Short and quick presentation on the state of Apereo CAS in 2019. I hope the presentation was useful to you. If you'd like to get in touch and share ideas, feedback, and suggestions, my contact information is available here, and you can always get in touch with the project either on GitHub or various designated mailing lists as appropriate. Thank you for your time, and I hope to hear from you soon.
So that was the presentation on CAS. As Ian has indicated in the chat, it's important to contact CAS through Twitter, the Twitter handles that were listed in the chat. We're now moving ahead. I believe it's correct time to take a look at media capture and delivery via OpenCast, and we're going to be hearing from Greg Logan. Greg Logan has been involved with OpenCast for 10 years, starting in the early days as a student developer, and now working full-time directly for the project. He manages the day-to-day project infrastructure tasks, as well as leading developer meetings and reviewing a lot of code. He is very familiar with the ins and outs of OpenCast's code base and is always happy to chat with folks interested in video and education. So Greg, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to get my screen sorted out here. Find the right window. You are sharing this screen. Okay, I'm assuming you can see my meeting, so I'm going to flip to my slides. And hopefully this works, because I did not actually get a chance to test this with real people. If for some reason you are not seeing my slides, could one of the moderators please pipe up and we can poke at this. So I'm here today to talk to you about Opencast. We are a scalable video content management and processing system engine type thing. And that will become more clear about what that actually means in a second here. So who am I? As our moderator said, my name is Greg Logan. I am the Opencast QA coordinator. I've been involved in the project for about 11 years now. The project started, I think, roughly about 12 years. So I have been involved since very early in the project. I started as a capture agent developer, which is the device that goes in your classroom and records things. And I am now much more into the core, working with the whole code base, but much more into the code that runs the core, the stuff that's going to run on your servers. I'm also a consultant for myself. I run my own consulting company. My major contract is with the Opencast project, managing the QA stuff, but I am not directly affiliated with any given institution, which kind of changes the power dynamic because I don't have a production install. I'm sort of doing this out of an interest in the project more than because I need it to be running. That was the wrong button. Okay. I'm just, as a heads up here, I cannot see your questions. Actually, I wonder if I can do, betcha that's not going to work. That's not going to work, is it? All right, let's go back here.
Greg, I'll be fielding the questions. If you'd like to be interrupted, I can do that or hold them to the end.
That would be great, yeah. Just so that I can answer them in line. Sometimes I tend to brain dump and then we get to the end and people are very confused.
Everyone asks your questions as he goes along. I'll be
for sure. Okay. All right. So what is Opencast? As I said, it's a distributed video content management and processing, and I missed a word at the end there, system. Basically, we take input video and do something useful with it and make it available via some output method. The majority of our adopters use an internal publication method. So Opencast has a media module, we call it, that makes the recordings available to students, or I'm going to use the metaphor of students and professors here, but we know that there are people who are not higher ed using Opencast. So if that doesn't match what you're thinking of, don't worry about that. It should still work, right? Just because I say student and professor doesn't mean you have to use it that way. So with the media module makes things available to students. We can also use that media module via LTI, so you can embed your content into your lecture content management systems like Sakai, and we'll see that in a couple of minutes here. You can also do things like publish directly to YouTube, publish via OAI PMH, and publish via things like CDNs, so specifically AWS CloudFront, but I'm pretty sure that just about any other cloud, CDN rather, would work just fine. We have an adopter who is using CloudFront, so we know that that one works. Opencast takes your content, uses your workflows and your choices. You can add pre and post roll trailers. There's a basic editing tool built into the admin UI. We automatically detect slide segments in the video and capture a screenshot of those so that you're not having your faculty uploading their slides. They don't have to do that. There's just a video of their slides, which means that if they're using, for example, a symposium and they're marking up their slides, that's actually captured. You're not losing that data. We can also do audio normalization. And because, of course, we're open source, you can add your own cool tricks. One of our adopters, for instance, has built a plugin where if you display a QR code, it makes a cut to the video, stops recording, and then once that QR code disappears from the slides, it starts recording again. So they use this in practical labs where there is patient data being discussed, like a nursing lab, for example. Patient data being discussed, and that cannot be recorded. It just can't be. So they put the thing up, the class continues as normal, has its discussion, the QR code goes away, and all of a sudden it starts recording again. So there's very little, like the faculty doesn't have to remember to push a button or go to a website and stop the recording, things like that. And it also eliminates things like, oh, I forgot to start the recording again, which does happen from time to time. Opencast can, excuse me, Opencast can run on premises or in the cloud. So Manchester, this is the organization with the QR codes, has 300 plus rooms automatically capturing. And I believe their staff is, I think, 5 people. So, I mean, this OpenCast can scale pretty easily. Harvard DCE is running also another large install entirely in AWS. If you are interested in what that looks like, come to Karen's talk on Thursday. She's talking about some part of DCE's configuration. I'm not entirely sure what. OpenCast runs on community. Sorry, I've got a really bad frog. There we go. OpenCast runs on commodity hardware and software. We're written in Java, currently Java 8, supporting Java 11 soon. We're packaged for Docker, Debian, and Red Hat-based distributions. That's not to say that it won't work for other installs, just that those are sort of the tested versions that we actually test against. Because we're written in Java and use Maven, I mean, it should work just about everywhere. Operations that you want run are distributed internally across the available hardware. If you need faster processing, generally it's best to just throw more hardware at it, but there are some of our users who are experimenting with things like GPU encodes. So if you have a GPU available and want to speed up your encodes, you could test with things like that. Capture agents, and these are the things that go in your classroom to record stuff, whether that be workshops or lectures or whatever, can be purchased or they can be built. We've got multiple vendors involved. Galacaster, which is a group that actually started not really as an OpenCast project, but like as an adjunct to OpenCast, and it has since turned into sort of their own business. There's Extron. I'm sure everyone knows about Extron. Ncast. I'm sure I'm missing names. Just because I haven't included them here does not mean that they're not quality or anything like that. It's just that I don't want to go through all of the different vendors.
So Greg,
You can also,
we have a question.
Sure.
Are there any OpenCast installs that have publicly available videos via OAI PMH video-based OER? That's from Chris Beach.
Publicly, I do not believe so. OAI PMH was added for, I believe, Switch, which is the national NRAN for Switzerland, and is also in use by Manchester. But as far as I know, neither of those are public. That's not to say that they can't be made public if you need to, for example, take a look at this for evaluation purposes. If you would like to see if I can get you access, please email me or tweet at me or something, or hop on the users list. In general, the community is very open and very willing to help people. So if that seems like something that you're actually interested in, want to see what it looks like, by all means get in touch and we can see what we can set up. I personally don't run anything with OAI PMH, so I can't really help you there, unfortunately. But I can put you in touch with people who can. Any other questions right now?
No, not right now.
Okay. All right, so you can also build capture agents out of software and some COTS hardware or IP cameras or NDI. There's the Galacaster project, which is a software-based system. You can buy licenses for Galacaster. You can use a free version of Galacaster, which has just a few features turned off, or you can buy hardware via Galacaster, which gets you the pro license and all of the features and bells and whistles. You can also use PyCA, which is an implementation of the capture agent written in Python that runs, well, it was originally designed to run on a Raspberry Pi as a backup capture agent and has since sort of taken on a life of its own. So it's very easy to get into, very easy and very low cost, can be very low cost, doesn't have to be, but it can be very low cost to get into the capture agent space in OpenCast. So OpenCast is also easy to integrate. Obviously, the end results can come out via LTI. They can also come out via OAI PMH or YouTube or whatever. We also have our own, we call it the external API. It would be what you would call the API as somebody who's outside of OpenCast. It's relatively stable. It's being upgraded. We're working on it. So if there's something that you want added to it, this is the kind of thing where a pull request definitely goes a long way. OpenCast is extensible and has a very vibrant community. As a board, I'm a member of the board. We're estimating about 300 plus institutions all over the world. There's a map there. It's quite impressive. We're running a crowdfunding call right now, and this is the third crowdfunding call, and the past ones have been funded. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the results of the current one are, that's for sure. There's also add-ons, which are sort of adjunct tools. LectureSite is a object tracking system that uses 2 cameras to aim your PTZ camera so that it's locked into the faculty member and not like the whole general board. Peekaboo, which is a confidence monitoring tool. This is something that Manchester uses to monitor their 300 capture agents. So like on the hour, when 300 of them start up all at once, you get 300 little images showing, yes, these are actually working. There's an annotation tool for, I believe, annotating video. This is a fairly new one I'm not all that familiar with. And then OpenCast Studio, which I'll show you in a second and might make this presentation make a little bit more sense. We also have a number of vendors and consultants, Elan EV, which is a company out of Germany, my company, Logan IT, and Teltech, who develops Galacaster, among other things. I believe they also host OpenCast as a cloud, although I'm not sure about that. Don't quote me on it. Developers, we are an active developer core. We've met weekly since the beginning of the project. 4+ countries currently. It used to be 6, 8, something like that, with 6+ committer organizations. We also have a mentorship program. So if you have a developer who's really wanting to become an OpenCast developer, get in touch because we're definitely open to new committers. The project is actively releasing new versions. We have 2 major versions per year. This year it's slipped because of COVID. The development slowed right down because all of us that were working on the code were suddenly pulled off on our own institutional things. But normally we release 2 major feature versions a year. There's been 13 minor releases in the last year in 3 major branches that are just bug fixes, things like that. They are drop-in compatible. Major versions, there's typically a little bit of a change. There might be some downtime, but usually it's not too bad. We're also doing webinars for those who want to learn more about the ins and outs of OpenCast. These sort of started since COVID-19 really hit. There's 6 already available. There's 2 more currently planned. And I don't really foresee them stopping because I think I have a list of like 60 subjects and we've done 6 of them so far. So there's a ways to go here. I'm looking forward to doing them because they turn out to be a lot of fun. So this is all well and good. I mean, I can just blather on for an hour if you want, but let's go do a demo. And hopefully this doesn't flame out horribly. So here's what the UI looks like. I'm assuming everybody can see this is the admin UI. And how am I for time here? I've got about 6 minutes. Okay. So each of these recordings, each of these lines here is a recording. They can be organized into series. This is typically in an educational institution. The series is your class, your computers 100. And then there are N events inside of that class. And those are the individual recordings. There is an editing tool. Let's see if this works. Click. So this is that basic editing tool that I was talking about. This is a development install that University of Cape Town, my apologies, set up for me. So the videos may not be entirely working 100%. But this, we have the ability to trim out individual components here. So this piece here has been trimmed out, and this section here, and this section here. So we have the source media, which is the full uncut version, and then the end user sees just the blue pieces, the cut out sections. And then there are different workflows. So for example, Cape Town has multiple audio. Some of them have stereo. That kind of thing is just supported out of the box. And your average user is never going to see this. This is your administrator or your faculty member can be given a view of this that's restricted exclusively to their events. But this is sort of, I believe I am a global admin in this install. What your end user is going to see is something like this. So those of you who are Sakai people probably recognize this. This is Vula, the Sakai instance at Cape Town. I don't really know Sakai all that well, so I'm just going to click on the things that I know how work properly. So I'm going to go to the OpenCast site, go to my lessons, and then this is a video by Bloom Eternal.
Greg, the Vola team has said you can also embed individual recordings in Sakai lessons through content item. And Alan Regan comments, yes, but it's a bit small, just so there's, there's chatter going on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, this is the wonderful thing about LTI. OpenCast's player, what you're looking at here is Theodul, which was developed by Elan. And I'm not going to go through the features of the player because, I mean, it's just a video player. It's nothing hugely different than what you're familiar with from any other video player. But you can embed Theodul or the new player, which is called Paella, via LTI, via OAI PMH, all kinds of different things to wherever you need. OpenCast doesn't really care where it goes as long as it's useful. You can also use OpenCast to export these videos. Like right now, what we're watching is a video that's more or less meant for our players. You definitely could set it up to export a video that is meant for download. So something that's significantly smaller, significantly lower quality, or significantly higher quality, for example. Right now, we're looking at 720p. We could, in theory, deliver here at 1080p. I'm not going to do that because I'm on Wi-Fi, but the Harvard install, I believe, delivers in multiple bit rates and streaming at the same time. So it will step up and down as needed. So there's all kinds of flexibility with OpenCast. And the nice thing is because we are open source, you can, if you need something, you can either pay somebody to develop it or you can develop it yourself and contribute it to OpenCast and we will take over the maintenance. So this is a different, so this is StudIP. This is out of Osnabrück in Germany, and they have, oh, I wonder if the system is rebooting because that thumbnail's not loading. Yeah, so this is also an LTI link. Hopefully it works. And it's opening up, oh, okay, also in Theodul. This is more what the player would look like in a full screen view. Okay, this is our old demo media. This is actually me in the white shirt in the corner here, and Chris Brooks, one of our previous product owners. And yeah, that's sort of what we have. I think we've got a very stable system. It scales very well, and we have a lot of people who are very interested in doing things at scale. I knew I was forgetting something. That's what I'm trying to remember. I've got a couple more minutes here. So this is all well and good, right? It sounds great as long as COVID isn't happening because nobody can go to their classrooms right now, right? How do you get your faculty member to ingest things to OpenCast? How does that work? That's crazy, right? Well, Osnabrück Elan developed something called OpenCast Studio from a tool that was originally developed at Cape Town called, I believe, Ghetto Studio. And this is, and hopefully this works. I have no idea what's going to happen if I try and capture my own screen again. Nested saves. There we go. Okay, so this is a very light, thin and light client to record videos. So this, you can go right now to studio.opencast.org and you will see probably an updated version of this. I believe this might be a few versions out of date. But the gist of it is that you don't need, as long as you've got a webcam and some kind of microphone, your faculty member can just go to go to studio.opencast.org or more likely go to your OpenCast install and have this tool, and they can make their recording. And then they hit stop, 30 seconds of recording. They can review it. If they're not happy, they can start over, do it again. If they are happy, they can ingest it. So my test recording, Greg Logan. And if they really want to, they can download the source video. And this is the cool thing. When it says download recording, what that actually means is save it from the browser's cache to your local disk. At this point, nothing has been sent to a server anywhere aside from the requests for the studio, the files that are actually in use to render this. But until I hit upload, nothing has been sent to the server, which means it's incredibly scalable. This is not a large application that I've downloaded. So all of your faculty members can use this at once. And as long as they don't all hit upload at the same time, you will probably be fine. Chances are, if you're on a campus network, you'll probably be fine anyway.
So Greg, we've reached the end of your time. Do you have a concluding statement?
Nope, that was going to be my conclusion. That is my demo. I am happy to answer questions here. I'm also happy if you want to talk on IRC or Slack or the users or developers list. We also meet weekly Tuesdays at 1300 UTC in a big blue button meeting room for our technical meeting. And thank you all for coming. Thank you for listening. And I hope this was useful. Any questions?
They'll have to be posted to you on social media.
That's fair.
Thank you very much, Greg. We now have a
Thank you.
reflection time from Ian Dolphin. Ian Dolphin is Executive Director of the Apereo Foundation and has been involved with open source software in higher education for almost 20 years. He is former head of e-strategy at the University of Hull in the UK and worked for the JISC for 2 years. Ian, are you there?
I am here, Janice. Thank you very much. So this is we're coming to the end of the first morning session where you get an overview of Apereo projects. You've seen about half of them, the projects that relate to what we've described as the communication, scheduling, authentication, media capture, back end. And what we really wanted to do in this time is just give you the opportunity to make comments, anything that struck you so far, any points in common, and a little bit of space to have a breather before we go on to our last session at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is an exciting session featuring sponsors, showcase, and posters. One thing that struck me about several of the early presentations this morning, there's a recurring question, which is, how do we better discover institutions that are using our software? And I made a note of that. Do people from projects want to indicate how they do this? Let us know and in the chat, and I'll allow you to talk. Or indeed, any other general points you want to make. Otherwise, we get lunch, for me, a little late, but for people on US Eastern, a little early.
So Ian, they've asked you to repeat the question, please.
Okay, so one question that came up in several presentations early this morning was, how do we better discover institutions that are using our software? We don't always get to know about them. Any projects have good practice they want to share there? How do you find out who's using your stuff out there?
And we have a comment from Chuck Severance. It's always a trade-off between knowing and surveillance. And from Greg Logan, we have a package repository so users who want to register can. It's public, so it's not required.
Two very useful comments. Anyone else? Any other questions that anyone wants to ask at this time? Comments about the conference format itself? Literally a bit of a breather, general discussion time.
We have a comment from Lucy Appert. I think those are interesting comments in light of Kathleen's talk. And from Susanna M, Unitime has voluntary registration.
Well, I think this will become a topic for further conversation throughout the year. Any other comments that folks want to make at this stage? If not, we'll close this morning US Eastern session.
We have one more. Xerti also has voluntary registration. That's from Inga Dunkervoort. And from Audrey Posto-Janitz, used to be pages on apereo.org where adopters could register their implementations, mostly gone.
Mostly pushed down to project pages, but we can look at that. That's a useful comment. Thank you.
Any more? From Alan Regan, others can correct me, but I think Sakai is also voluntary registration, question mark.
I think that's right, and I think that's the norm amongst our projects.
From Matilda Guerin, we've tried to identify French uPortal instances by checking specific URLs /uPortal and or resources. And from Lauren Haywood, thanks all. From Chuck Severance, we do audit Sakai from time to time using various data sources. From Matilda Guerin, plus surveys. From Chuck Severance, we do want to know folks so we can get a security contact.
Particularly important, and we try to register them at a foundation level as well as subscriptions are renewed.
Apologies to anyone whose name I did not pronounce correctly.
I think you got them, Janice.
Let's see, from Lucy Appert, I feel like CAS is a big unknown on this front. From Audrey Postoyanets, but yes, such stats data would be great for university executives to know when making decisions about adopting new projects.
Yeah, it's spectacularly difficult to get hard information on CAS because CAS is a point of origin was Yale University, but it's very widely used outside education now, and I've seen it used in back in the days when we used to stay in hotels, even in certain major hotel chains, certainly widely used within telecoms and other industries. But yeah, absolutely. We need the stats in order to build the cases for adoption, and that's important.
From Lucy Appert, +1, Audrey.
Okay, I'm gonna say we can stop there. Enjoy your lunch break if it's that time of day. Enjoy your early evening meal if it's that time of day for you. And we'll get together again back at 2 o'clock for the reception with sponsors, showcase, and posters. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ian.